and welcome to today's episode of Raise Your Visibility Online with me, Louise Brogan. Today we have a very interesting guest, Laura Meyer, who is a CIO, angel investor, and like some of the most guests I've been having on recently, phenomenal career and very inspirational. No pressure, Laura. So Laura, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Louise. Thanks for having me.
So, Laura, can you tell us a little bit, just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about your background, please, if that would be okay.
Sure. So I started doing an arts degree, actually. I did an arts degree. And then I was working for a while and realised actually I was interested in this new thing, technology, which was quite new back then because I'm old. But and I did a master's in information systems design. I was really interested in, and at that time, because there were so few people doing it, the government had a big incentive to get people in more into technology. And so I did that, and then it was a full-time course. And then for the last 3 months, you had to do a placement somewhere, do a project. And I applied to various places, and I ended up doing one at Turner Broadcasting. So the TV company started by the very legendary Ted Turner. It was relatively small then in the UK, huge in the US. CNN was here. They were starting to do some more on the TV side, etc. And so I joined a department, very small department at that time, just a few people. And then they offered me a job, and I stayed there. And I ended up, so I started as gosh, I can't even remember what my title was back then, but I started and ended up 17 years later when I left Senior Vice President of Technology and Operations. Wow. So it was a brilliant time to be in TV because TV was so huge then as well, and a really visionary company. Right at the cutting edge of doing so many things. So it was fantastic to be involved in that. And the growth was phenomenal. So, ended up, so I was in tech, but I ended up with broadcast operations as well. And we were broadcasting out of our offices at the time, about 36 channels across Europe, Middle East and Africa. So that was, it was fantastic. It was a very, very 24/7 job to be working in. So there was not much time off ever. But I loved it. I learned so much, worked with phenomenal people. So Time Warner merged eventually with Time Warner, so Warner Brothers, Time Magazine, all of that. So fantastic company. As I say, very full on. And at that point, after 17 years, I decided I needed to try something else. Otherwise, I might not. And then I took a job as CIO at HarperCollins in the UK, and I was there for 10 years. So stayed in a similar industry in media, in another great company, brilliant publishing, and again, thoroughly enjoyed it. And had extra responsibilities across other departments. So I had a very broad role and enjoyed that. And then I just wanted to do something else with my life. And I'd seen, as it happened, a post that Angel Academy had done on LinkedIn. And I thought, wow, that sounds interesting. So I contacted them and said, look, I'm interested in becoming a member and investor, etc. And that's how I got into it. And I had a chat with the founder, Sarah Turner. She founded it over a decade ago. And then, I started getting involved. And that's what I've been doing since I left my previous role.
Wow.
So really interesting. And it opened up a sort of whole new world, really. You know what it's like, Louise, when you're in a job or you're in a company, in a certain industry, you're very much enclosed in that to a degree, and that's your priority. And then you go to something, you meet other people with very different and varied backgrounds. It opened up a whole different way of thinking about stuff for me.
Yes, I love that. I think I completely hear what you're saying. So I was in corporate for a very short time, really, a couple of years. I went into public health for 10 years and then entrepreneurship. And I'm so far removed from that corporate space, which is where I thought I would be.
Yes.
I thought I'd be there my whole career. Then when I went to recently in Belfast, I went to a event organized for women working in banking and finance, and everybody else in the room was very much in the corporate space. And I thought, your world is so separate from my world, even though we live in a really quite a small city.
Yes.
And people are all existing in these separate little ecospheres almost.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and they know nothing about the other person, like what's out there. So it's kind of fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the thing about angel investing is that people come from all sorts of different backgrounds, so have a very eclectic mix of experiences. So it won't be just one industry or one type of company. It'd be so varied, and that's fascinating. And what you get is an unbelievable array of expertise from all these different people, whether they're lawyers or have been lawyers or patent attorneys or CFOs or all marketeers, all sorts of different things. So you get this very strong, diverse view of looking at things. And it's fascinating.
Yes, I love it. So tell us a bit more about the Angel Academy. I mean, is it just for people who are like, what is that? Can we describe it a little bit more?
Sure. So it's an organisation, as I mentioned, set up by Sarah Turner, and she's a co-founder. And she had wanted to get into doing some angel investing herself, and didn't realise it was something that was possible, but went along to events and it was all men everywhere. And she thought, ooh, what about women? Because it's this myth, I think, about women do have about half of the money of our population, certainly UK as an example, but it's much more men that invest. So, which is interesting. And she wanted to have a forum, a place where women could come, where women could invest, not just women, it's men invest as well, but it's for female founders, because it's so hard for women to get investment. And that hasn't really shifted in so many years. So it's still only around 2% of all VC money goes to all female founded companies, and about 80% to all male, and then the bit in the middle is joint. So it is a shocking statistic.
Okay, can we talk a bit about that, Laura? I mean, I remember the Rose report that came up with this. It talked about this a while ago. Why is so little of the money going into female founder business? Is it that the women aren't looking for it? Is it the people making the decisions? I mean, I am not in this space. I'm kind of fascinated by it.
I think VCs are still run by maybe 80 to 90% men. So that doesn't help. I think there's still a lot of bias against female founded businesses, and perhaps motivation of the women for doing it. And we know that societally women have more of the burden of various things such as caring, responsibilities, etc. And sometimes that is looked on unfavorably for women. And are they really going to be dedicated to doing this? Sometimes if a woman can be very strong in her thoughts and what she believes in, it can be seen as being very opinionated, whereas a man can be seen as having great leadership skills. And and it's unfortunately that still is everywhere. That still is around. And so there is that structural bias that does still exist. So that's what an organisation like Angel Academy has tried to break down by helping to promote female founders and to be able to elevate them to get the investment they need, and to really help their businesses. Look, it's not an easy thing to be a founder of a business and to want to start and then scale a business. It's extremely hard. There's all sorts of things along the way that you have to think about. It's unbelievable. And I'm really in awe of the women who do it, who I see, because it takes so much determination. But an organisation like Angel Academy, with the people who are members, you've got great people there who can help you. As I say, whether it's a lawyer and you need some advice on something, whether it's a tech person, whether it's a finance person, there's all these experts who are there and who can help, which is brilliant.
I love it. So I did a recent podcast episode. Regular listeners will have heard Louise Doyle was on, and she has got investment with her business Needy, which is a brilliant business. People need to go back and have a listen to that. So it is a fascination to me. Now, I have never gone for investment. That's not what my business is. Sure. It's not the plan for my business, but I have a lot of women in my network who are in this space. Hopefully this is going to be really useful for them. What kind of, I understand that people will come in and get support from specific, like maybe if they need a patent lawyer or something like that. But are you also, are there talks and awareness events, that kind of thing going on as well, Laura?
Yes, I mean, there's loads of stuff on LinkedIn, for example, YouTube videos, all sorts of stuff that you can see if you were thinking, okay, I'd like to start a business. My thoughts now are, in some ways, there's never been a better time to start a business because the world we're living in with AI coming to the forefront, the way the economy is, etc. It's a brilliant time to start. And sometimes it's just making that first step. And we will say in investment terms, it's always great if you can bootstrap your business. So what that means is that you can fund it yourself to begin with. You start small, you see if your idea has legs. And often you'll do that while you're still employed in a job, and you'll do it as a side hustle and see, okay, can I make this work? Is it realistic? And the biggest thing that people have to ask themselves is, what problem am I solving? And that's sometimes that we see when people haven't been rigorous enough in asking that question. Yeah. What problem am I solving? And is it something that people are going to be willing to pay for? Yes. Because if they're not, what are you doing it for?
That's massive.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah, and people don't always think about it. And you've really got to be rigorous on questioning it and asking people in your own network, would you pay for something like this? If I developed X to solve this Y problem, would you pay for that? Yes. And people might say, I love that idea, I love what you're proposing, but actually I wouldn't pay for it because it's not a necessity. It's not something that's going to be big enough for me. Yes. So, and that's the biggest thing that we see. And just going back to what you mentioned, Louise, on your business not having investment, I think that's a really great point as well. There's lots of different pathways for founders. Not all of them are about getting investment. Some are sustainable businesses. So people create their business to have a sustainable livelihood. And they might want to do that for X number of years. They might end up selling it, for example, to somebody who's doing something similar, or they might just close it down. But there are various pathways. And just to make it clear, getting investment is not easy, particularly in how things are politically and everything else at the moment. It's a difficult environment. So you've really got to be prepared to go for it with the if you want to get investment, and expect you're going to get knockbacks and expect it's going to be hardcore. Because it is. Yeah.
Very, I'd imagine you need the height of an elephant.
You need a lot of resilience. You really do. And determination.
Yes. Yeah. Have you, let's talk a little bit about AI, Laura. In the UK, what do you think about, Northern Ireland punches above its weight, I think, in a lot of things. And there's a lot of talk here about we need to get in front of this, with AI in business. What are you seeing in terms of how it's changing the landscape for business, in the UK and even globally? It's, how do people even keep up with it all? I'm subscribed to some amazing Substacks. That's why I'm getting a lot of information at the minute. But yeah, what do you see with AI and how it's currently impacting businesses and all of this kind of stuff?
I think it's huge. And the possibilities are huge.
Yes.
I think perhaps the implementation in certain places, how are companies implementing it? Are companies going in and saying, okay, let's do a whole review of everything that we do and what could be done by AI, and do some real deep dives on that?
Yeah.
How are we using it ethically? What are the guardrails? And how are we actually telling our employees that? Because there's no point just putting out a policy and saying this is what you do. You've got to tell people how to use it.
Yes.
And how to use it in an ethical way. The Harvard Business Review, I don't know if you've seen it, Louise, they just put out recently, in the last week or two, something called The Rise of Work Slop.
This word is everywhere. The word slop is just suddenly everywhere.
So work slop is somebody's, at work, and they've been asked for a piece of work, and they stick it into chat or whatever, and they get it and they submit, here's my 7 pages and 10 pages, whatever it is, here's my report, and it looks great, great, I've got a report here. But in actual fact, they haven't been through it to actually sanitize it, or to see if there's spelling mistakes, or to see if there's any mistakes, what are the references that have been made, are they real references? And then so somebody else has then got to correct that work, and that's creating additional work. So there's this whole thing of do not do work slop. If you're using AI, brilliant tool, and the deep research you can do now with the tools is phenomenal. So something that might have taken a week's work of somebody looking at all sorts of different research papers, you might be able to do in 30 to 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's phenomenal, isn't it?
No, it is. I think it's amazing. I am using a lot of AI in my business, but because I did a master's in computing and information systems as well, Laura. Probably our paths went completely different ways, but I think we started off at the same place. And I did a degree in geography, which is kind of in the arts. But where I'm loving it is not actually necessarily in my work. It's in my passion project, which is I go and visit really ancient standing stones, like 3,000 tombs. Like, it sounds really geeky. But I love that stuff. And I'm putting together little videos about it just for fun.
Yeah.
But I'm using AI to do the really researching the archaeology papers and pulling out things and and I'm loving it, because to get access to that information, as you say, it's just so quick and brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I find myself, I use chat much more than I Google now.
Yes.
I might Google a restaurant, see opening times or something like that, but information I want to know, I'll go to chat much more than I would Google. And I think we'll see AI become an operating system. It will evolve that way.
Yeah.
And so that it will be part of everything that you're doing, your calendar, your emails, your work documents, everything. It will remind you about stuff. It will say, have you thought about this? You've got this meeting coming up. Do you want me to do a paper on that?
Yeah.
So that's how it will evolve. And we're already starting to see that. And I think as we look at the value, there's been a project in the US called GDP Val, and where they got experts basically experts in a field, let's for example say a lawyer, and they would think about tasks and different things that need to be done and answers to different situations. And they got experts that for various different roles that make up a certain percentage of GDP in the US. And then they got real life people to answer these things, and then they got AI to answer these things, and then an independent assessor,
Right.
that knowledge assessed it, and so didn't know which was AI, which was a human, and it came up. They valued the AI work. It was 47, just over 47% of it was AI that they valued. And that is at this point. So 47% of it was better. The AI output was better than the human output.
Right.
So, and that is in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So imagine 6 months ago, that would not have been the case.
No.
Because it's developed so much more.
So fast.
So, yeah. So think of what it's going to be in another 3 months, another 6 months, if already it's at that level of expertise.
Yes. So my mind immediately, Laura, then goes to my children.
Absolutely.
Who are, studying physics and chemistry, and they're still in education. Yeah. I think by the time they graduate, what is this? Can they? Yeah, what's it going to look like? And I want, we've kind of gone slightly off the path here a little bit, but I think, what gives you value in your life is when you do a good day's work and you end your day and you think, I'm earning money for doing something that I am enjoying and connecting with people. And I don't want to lose that. I want my children to have jobs where they go to a job and they are with colleagues and they, whatever they create, or, they feel value in their work. And I think that's, as you talked about ethics a little bit there, I think we need to be very careful about that. We don't want to, there isn't, to me, the idea of AI doing all the work and we can just work an hour a day. I don't think as humans that is beneficial.
No, I think it's this whole future of, there's so many anecdotes out there, if you like, or people saying things, but there's not deep conversations or solutions being proffered. People will say, okay, in the future we'll have universal basic income because people won't need to, some jobs will just disappear or some jobs will reduce. And how does that work? Nobody's talking about how that will work. You don't hear that talk in government.
No.
It's talked a bit more about in the US, but you don't hear it being spoken about.
At all,
yeah. Graduate unemployment is about 30% now. So it's tricky, and that, of course, is the economy and other things as well. But you've got the tech leaders, if you like, all really based in the US, or mainly based in California in the US. And that's another thing, you've got the power of the tech held in the hands of a few.
Oh, yes.
And all really more or less in California.
Yeah.
But, you've got somebody like Jensen Huang who runs NVIDIA, and he spoke the other day and he said something along the lines of, you can't say, well, AI is just going to take jobs and blame AI. What everybody has to do is embrace AI and see, and you've got to learn it. Otherwise, you might become irrelevant, but you have to, the responsibility is yours to learn it and upskill yourself. And I think that's really true. Yeah. And look, there's loads of ways people can do that now. Just look at, there's OpenAI's Academy. There's loads of free courses that people can go to, how to do prompts, in the best way, how to do all sorts of things. So there's loads out there that people may not be aware of, but once you start digging, you can find it. So there's lots of educational stuff. It's going to transform education, I'm sure, in the future.
Well, this is where, again, as a mother, I'm immediately thinking that's where the government should be focusing. My children's school, the teachers don't know anything. I mean, yeah, if anyone's listening from my children's school, it's a wonderful school. But what is their level of knowledge of AI? Not amazing. So, I think there's investment needed in there to make, if this is the future for these children and their careers, then we need that needs to be incorporated into the education that they're getting.
Absolutely. And, perhaps the future of education as well is more personalised education for each pupil using AI to do that, and which could be beneficial for every child's needs. So
pretty wonderful, yes.
Yeah.
I would have chosen a completely different subject.
Exactly. So yeah, it's fascinating, and I think it's in organizations, perhaps people learning together as well. Okay, let's take this project and let's use whatever tool you're using in your company, and let's see what we can do, and do it together, learn together, see how you can improve them, by using the model. And it's fascinating. I was listening to somebody the other day who said they had to do a deep research project. They would have normally hired somebody, a contractor, for taken 5 days. They would have had to look at all this different data. And instead they decided to do very well prompted with specific things that they wanted in this deep research. They put it into chat, I think, or to Gemini, and said, this is what I want. These are the types of reference points I want you to get to. Look at this data, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And within half an hour, they had the report, and he said it was at PhD level.
Wow.
So not only did it save a lot of time, it saved him employing somebody for 5 days, and he got this report instantly. So, I think when people are saying, I'm not sure what I'll use it for, or if it can benefit in my company, just try it. Do a deep research project and see what the results are. Tell it exactly what you want. And of course, you need to then check it, because AI will, it's made to help you. So it wants to help you. So it's going to tell you things, even perhaps when they're not full facts. So you need to check all of that. But the information is brilliant. And whether you're using it in your personal life, as you mentioned, you want to go on a trip. We just came back from Canada, and I used it to say, okay, what are the highlights in this place and this place? And, you can get so much information just quickly, rather than going to a browser that comes back with other links, and then you have to go through all the links.
Checking through all the different separate links. Yes, absolutely.
In one place.
Yes.
And, it's phenomenal. And I'm very hopeful about the future in terms of what AI can do for medical research. If we get to a certain point, it could perhaps solve every disease there is, and that would be amazing. Of course, that brings up another issue, doesn't it? Of, oh my God, is everybody living forever? But we're far off that yet. But if it gets to full intelligence, you're talking about something even much, much bigger.
Yes.
And but of course, it comes with caution, doesn't it? Like anything that's good also has another flip side to it, and how people might use it. I mean, for example, I don't think any of the labs thought that initially that people would use the tools for mental health advice. And suddenly loads of young people are doing it. And I think in the beginning it was like, people saying, I want to harm myself or do X, Y, Z. And it was telling you ways you could do that. And now recently, if you went to chat and you said something, I went and just said, if somebody said they were, feeling suicidal, what would you advise them to do? Just to see, because they have now put in, okay, call the Samaritans. This is the number.
Oh, wow.
In the UK. Yeah.
Yes.
Speak to somebody, speak to one of your family, speak to one of your friends. You must talk about it, blah, blah, blah. So, and that wasn't there before. And so it's evolving, it's learning.
Yes.
The labs don't all know how people will engage with these tools, and probably have come up with ways people have started to use it in ways that nobody thought. I mean, I think there was a report yesterday, wasn't there, saying, people are saving on legal fees because they're going to chat to get advice. People are getting advice for all sorts of things.
Yes, and no one saw that coming. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
So it is phenomenal, and hopefully, I was just mentioning about the OpenAI Academy. They've got stuff in there for charities, for example. So charities who might not be able to afford to have people on their teams who can implement some of the stuff, but basic stuff that they can do to learn more.
Yes.
So there's lots of good coming out of it, and it's all about upskilling, working together, seeing what you can do, and the possibilities are endless.
No, I love this. So I do have, so I pay for chat, and I have a project in there that is my COO. and I feed it information about my business. So then when I ask, the ideas that come back are brilliant. But another lady that I'm friendly with, Sarah, who is a female founder, she was just telling me this morning they use Notebook internally, so the whole team have access to it. And she feeds, it's a project, and she feeds it in all the SOPs for the business, so that her team are learning together. You know, if you have a question about something, you go here before you come to her, because she is running the business. And I think this is the kind of way we want people to see the opportunities to help us with
exactly. I mean, there's things obviously that people are concerned about, and rightly so. Copyright, for example.
Yes, as an author myself.
Exactly. You know, so, and I think a recent judgment was, I'm not sure which lab it was it Anthropic? I can't remember, but they'd ingested millions of books, and they said the judgment was they hadn't broken the law by ingesting, because anybody can go and read books, but they had, because they hadn't paid for it.
Right. Oh, so, I missed that judgment. I must pick that up, actually.
So it's, and you know, you've seen the latest one with the AI actor who's, you know, and quite rightly, other professionals saying that that's really worrying.
It is,
And people, I think, patterning themselves, you know, so that they can't be used to create, you know, as content. So, yeah, you know, as I say, as we know, the good comes with the bad.
Yeah.
And we have to hope that we can use it more for the good.
We have to be aware of it.
Absolutely, and educate ourselves and know what's going on. And just as you mentioned that, you know, you look at read a lot of stuff, and you know, I listened to a brilliant podcast that rounds up what's happening in the labs and everything, and it's just being aware of that, because it's changing on a weekly basis. So it's phenomenal, the speed. So something that wasn't, you know, possible a month ago, it's possible now. So the speed of it, I don't think anybody's seen transformation like it.
No.
And for companies, it's a massive change project, isn't it? And I think people have to recognize that this is change, it's fundamental change. And you have to deal with it as a change project and think about what comes with that, the emotions that people will have, the concerns they will have about their jobs. Is AI going to take my job? So if I don't use it, then it can't do it. But no, you've got to go with it. You've got to see how you can use it to the best benefits for yourself, for your company, whatever you're doing. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that's why if you are a startup, you know, previously where you might have had to had maybe a bookkeeper / accountant, somebody to draft some notes with, somebody to help with your marketing, somebody to write some posts. A lot of that you can now do. Think of, you know, the imagery you can create, the marketing you can do. You can do a lot of that through AI tools. So, which is brilliant. So that means that the entry level for cost has come down for people wanting to start up, because you can think, well, some of this I'm going to be able to do myself, you know, rather than employing other people. And that makes it more accessible for a lot more people, a lot more women.
Yes, which I love. What advice would you give to a woman who is a female founder? I love that phrase, female founder. So say, you know, someone's listening to this and they're thinking, yeah, I love all this, I'm really fired up about it. What do they need to know about the whole angel investment world? You know, how do they, I mean, obviously they're going to look you up, Laura, on LinkedIn and the Angel Academy, but what advice would you give to someone who was thinking of, you know, going down this road looking for an angel investment? Maybe they need to ask the AI for help.
Exactly. So I think the first thing, as I mentioned, so you know, it's that idea, but also as you grow a company, perhaps what's more important is the team as well. Team is essential.
Yeah.
So I'm slightly jumping ahead, but when we're looking at startups, and I only do my startups through Angel Academy, I only do my investments through Angel Academy.
Yeah.
But in when we're looking at somebody, we also look at their team, and that's so important.
Oh, okay.
What team have you got working with you? Because that's vital. But, you know, as I mentioned, if somebody's thinking, oh God, I've had this idea for ages,
yeah,
you know, test that idea firstly before you even get to any angel investment. Test it, as I mentioned, by bootstrapping.
yes,
See if it's really viable business. Can you make money? You've got to ask yourself that question again and again. Is anybody going to pay for it? Because if they're not, there's no point.
there's no point.
You know, there's no point. But if you find, I have, and you bootstrap, maybe you bootstrap for 12 months, and then you think, I need to leave my job, I need to do this full time, I need to get some more investment because I need to hire, you know, this role, that role to help me expand. So, you know, I'm going to try and get, I don't know, 250,000 or something to help me do that, 500,000. So it's then looking at what you're going to need to present to an angel group if you were doing that. And, you know, you'll be asked to do a presentation, and within that you want to get your salient points over, what problem you're solving, how you're doing it, how you're going to expand. It's also best at that point if you have got some customers, if you have got customers who are actually paying you, if you've been able to do that before you get to this stage, that's great, because you can see it is viable. There are people paying it. What are your projections? You've got to be able to do a financial model. You know, you've got to be able to say, this is how I see the future. This is how I'm developing my tech, for example. You know, this is my market. What's your competition? That's key.
Yeah.
Do you absolutely know your competition? And have you got a moat? Or can somebody come in and say, oh, a bigger company, oh, I like what they're doing, I'm just going to do it as well. And then your business is gone, you know. So you've got to think of that. And, you know, have you got IP? How do you need a patent? Have you done that? What legals have you done? So, and there's lots of examples of great presentations out there, and people can get advice on it. And, you know, you go along, if you have a screening, at Angel Academy, for example, we have a screening process. So if you're invited to that, you would screen. If they thought, okay, this is good, you'd then go on to present to members who, and then if people are interested, form a team, do due diligence on the company. So you work with them, they'll be exploring your company to, for example, you might have said, this is the only competition, it's not that great, but then, you know, when we're doing due diligence, might find out actually there's these 3 other companies.
These other ones,
they seem to have most of the market, and I'm just not sure. Is there enough space in the market? Look, it's fine to have competition, and some markets have space, lots of space for different competitors, but not all do. So then the due diligence would happen. If that came out positively, that then people would be investing. So, you know, I'd say to people, if you're really serious about a business that you want to start, try it first. And you know what, if that doesn't work, if you're bootstrapping something, you're doing a side hustle and it doesn't work, what have you lost? You know, you can try again. Some people go through numerous iterations, or maybe you just need to iterate it, maybe you need to pivot it.
Maybe just a little tweak, maybe.
Exactly. Or maybe, you know, you find out, you know what, I thought this is something that people would want, but in fact they don't. But I've had another idea. And you know, these serial entrepreneurs who failure, they'll just bounce back.
They just go with the next thing. Like I know this so much myself.
Exactly.
I'm an ideas machine.
Well, that's brilliant.
Do you think, Laura, and that was absolute masterclass, by the way, in what people need to think about. That was fabulous. Do you think there's a lot of gut instinct in this as well?
I think everybody has gut instinct generally, don't they? So yes, you do have gut instinct. And if you mean from an angel investment standpoint, you might have you know, that looks good. But often, I'll be honest, it'd be the founder as well. So much is based on the founder. Do we believe in the founder?
Yes.
Are they going to be able to do this? Or, you know, will they listen? Because again, and that's not to sound in any way patronizing, but when
No.
you're presenting to people who've got decades of experience in different backgrounds and different expertise, if somebody said, actually what you're doing there, that, you know, you've got to think of XYZ because of the legal requirement or something, whatever it is, and they say, yeah, but I don't want to, or I'm not going to, or they won't listen, then you know it's just not going to work.
No.
So you need founders who are going to take on board that the feedback and are willing to listen, and they want to have a brilliant business.
Yes.
You know, if you've got to the point of getting angel investment, and potentially you might go on to, you know, larger investment post that, depending on what type of company it is. You know, people will always have a potential exit in mind as well, thinking, okay, this is what I want to do. I think generally, you know, startup, it needs 10 years generally. Look, at the moment, we're seeing some AI companies that are phenomenal, right? And are worth billions. But you're talking lots of companies that start up, it will take at least 10 years, really. And perhaps at the end of that, there is an exit. And that's also something we often ask about. If you were to exit in the future, what type of company would buy you? Who are some potential now?
Who's interested in this?
So that you can think about it, is there actually a market? Because for angel investors, for example, you only get your money if there's an exit.
Yes.
So we're, you know, always keen to know what those possibilities might be.
Yes.
So it's good to think that, okay, if I did well in this, you know, this type of company might buy me. And look, you've got really successful companies that might take 20 years to be bought. So it's a long game. It's not for everyone. And as I say, you've got to be really resilient and determined to do it. But it can also give you a brilliant career. For some people, as you talked about, you know, you had a shorter career in corporate. I had a longer one. But for some people, I've interviewed, you know, founders who have said, I started a job in corporate and then just thought, I just can't do it. It's not for me. I cannot work in this environment. So my option is I've got to do something myself. And that's what they've gone on to do.
Yes.
So it's, you know, there's different pathways for different people. And it's finding the one that's good for you. But yeah, the best thing to think about, if you think you've got an idea, it's great always to have a co-founder, I think, as well. Because then you've got somebody who you can work with, somebody to share your ideas with, and it's hard and it's lonely, you know, being a founder. So that's a great thing to do as well, build up your team, but really question, you know, is somebody going to pay for this?
Is somebody going to pay for it? It all comes down to that, really.
Yes.
Will someone put their hand in their pocket for the I want to sell?
Exactly.
Laura, absolutely fantastic talking with you today. We could talk all day, but
we could.
Really, really some brilliant advice there. And our conversation with AI, I mean, it might be completely out of date in 6 months.
Exactly.
Where can people find out more about you, Laura, if they want to?
On LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, so I post quite regularly, not as much as I probably should, but I know you'll tell me I should need to post more.
If I had £1 for every time someone said to me, I know I should do this, Louise, I'm like, I'm not the LinkedIn police.
But look at how LinkedIn's developed. I mean, I remember joining way back when one of my cousins sent me things saying, join this. And I mean, look how that is now a phenomenal company.
Yes. Very heavy on the AI, which is, it's really fascinating what they're doing with AI. Really enjoy keeping up to date with all of that. All right, Laura, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
My pleasure.
Thank you.